Hi friends, this is Molly Hughes from Hugbox TGM. So last month I read much of the U.S. Constitution, and for this month I decided to read the rest of it. So I stopped at Amendment 12 at the Governor of the United States directed to the President of the Senate. So we're going to continue from there, and I think I have more energy now to read all this. So let's just go. The President of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate and House of Representatives, open all the certificates, and the votes shall then be counted. The person having the greatest number of votes for President shall be the President, if such member of be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed, and if no person have such majority, then from the persons having the highest numbers not exceeding 3 on the list of those who voted for as President, the House of Representatives shall choose immediately by ballot the President. But in choosing the President, the votes shall be taken by states, the representation from each state having one vote. A quorum for this purpose shall consist of a member or members from 2/3 of the states, and a majority of all the states shall be necessary to a choice. And if the House of Representatives shall not choose a president whenever the right of choice shall devolve upon them before the 4th day of March next following, then the Vice President shall act as President, as in the case of the death or other constitutional disability of a President. The person having the greatest number of votes as Vice President shall be Vice President, if such member of a majority of the whole number of electors appointed, and if no persons have a majority, then from the 2 highest numbers on the list, the Senate shall choose the Vice President. A quorum for this purpose shall consist of 2/3 of the whole number of senators, and a majority of the whole number shall be necessary to a choice. But no person, constitutionally ineligible to the office of President shall be eligible to that of the Vice President of the United States. Alright, I'm gonna take a little drink. And by the way, I'm not gonna read like the little end part about the ACLU. I don't think I really care about them that much. But with that said, Amendment 13, ratified December 6, 1865. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Okay, well, after this long one, I'm gonna take a quick drink. Very well. Amendment 14, ratified July 9, 1868. All persons are born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immune of citizens of the United States. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Representatives shall be appointed among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state. Excluding Indians not taxed, but when the right to vote at any election for the choice of electors for President and Vice President of the United States, with representatives in Congress, the executive and judicial officers of a state, or the members of the legislature thereof, is denied to any of the male inhabitants of such state, being 21 years of age and citizens of the United States, or in any way abridged except for participation in rebellion or other crime. The basis of representation therein shall be reduced in a proportion which the number of such male citizens shall bear to the whole number of male citizens 21 years of age in such state. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress, or elector of President and Vice President, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof, but Congress may vote by 2/3 of each house to remove such disability. The the validity of the public debt of the United States, otherwise by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned, but neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or any claim for the loss of or emancipation of any slave. But all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. The Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. Alright. Continue on with Amendment 15, ratified on February 3rd, 1870. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Amendment 16, ratified February 3rd, 1913. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or amelioration. Amendment 17, ratified April 8, 1913. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, elected by the people thereof, for 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote. The electors in each state shall have the qualifications required for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislators. When vacancies happen in the representation of any state in the Senate, the executive authority of such states shall issue writs of election to fill such vacancies, provided that the legislator of any state may empower the executive thereof to make temporary appointments until the people fill the vacancies by election and as the legislator may direct. This amendment shall not be so construed as to affect the election or term of any senator chosen before it becomes valid as part of the Constitution. Amendment 18, ratified January 16th, 1919, repealed by Amendment 21st, December 5th, 1933. After 1 year from the ratification of this article, give me a moment. I might take a drink. Alright, here it goes. After 1 year from the ratification of this article, the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors within the importation thereof into, or the exportation thereof from the United States and all territories subject to the jurisdiction thereof for beverage purposes is hereby prohibited. The Congress and the several states shall have concurrent power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. This article shall be operative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislators of the several states as provided in the Constitution within 7 years from the date of the submission hereof to the states by the Congress. Amendment 19, ratified August 18th, 1920. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. And this will be a little long, so I'm going to get another drink. Alright. Amendment 20, ratified January 23rd, 1933, the terms of the President and Vice President shall end at noon on the 20th day of January, and the terms of Senators and Representatives at noon on the third day of there's a little typo, but third day of January, of the years in which such terms would not have ended if this article had not been ratified, and the terms of their successors shall then begin. The Congress shall assemble at least once every year, and such meeting shall begin at noon on the third day of January until they shall by law appoint on a different day. If at the time fixed for the beginning of the term of the President-elect shall have died, the Vice President-elect shall become President. If a President shall not have been chosen before the time fixed for the beginning of this term, if the President-elect shall have failed to qualify, then the Vice President-elect shall act as President until a President shall have qualified, and the Congress may by law provide for the case wherein neither a President-elect nor a Vice President-elect shall have qualified, declaring who shall then act as President, or the manner in which who is to act shall be selected, and such person shall act accordingly until a President or Vice President shall have qualified. The Congress may by law provide for the case of the death of any of the persons from whom the House of Representatives may choose a president whenever the right of choice shall have devolved upon them, and for the case of the death of any of the persons from whom the Senate may choose as a vice president, whenever the right choice of choice shall have devolved upon them. Sections 1 and 2 shall take effect on the 15th day of October following the ratifications of this article. This article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislators of the 3/4 of the several states within 7 years from the date of its submission. Alright, that was very long done, so I'm going to take a quick drink. Give us a moment. We don't have any pages left, so that's good. Alright, Amendment 21 ratified December 5th, 1933. The 18th article of the amendment to the Constitution of the United States is hereby repealed. The transportation or importation into any state, territory, or possession of the United States for delivery or use therein of intoxicating liquors in violation of the laws thereof is hereby prohibited. The article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by conventions in the several states as provided in a constitution within 7 years from the date of the submission hereof to the states by the Congress. Amendment 22, ratified December 27, 1951. No person shall be elected to the office of the President more than twice, and no person who has held the office of President or acted as President for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected President shall be elected to the office of the President more than once. But this article shall not apply to any person holding the office of President when this article was proposed by the Congress, and shall not prevent any person who might be holding the office of President or acting as President during the term within which this article becomes operative from holding the office of President or acting as President during the remainder of such term. This article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been modified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislators of 3/4 of the several states within 7 years from the date of the submission to the states by the Congress. Alright, so we're getting, well, yeah, let me take another drink. Almost out of water, that's wonderful. With that said, Amendment 23, the district constituting the seat of government of the United States shall appoint in such a manner as the Congress may direct a number of electors of the president and vice president equal to the whole number of senators and representatives in Congress to which the district would be entitled if it were a state, but in no event more than the least populous state. They shall be in addition to those appointed by the states, but they shall be considered for the purposes of the election of president and vice president to be electors appointed by a state, and they shall meet in the district and perform such duties as provided by the 12th article of amendment. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Amendment 24, ratified January 23rd, 1964. The right of citizens of the United States to vote in any primary or election for president or vice president, for electors for president or vice president, or for senator or representative in Congress shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state by reason of failure to pay any poll tax or other tax. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Alright, there's going to be another long one coming up. So, almost done by the way. And so is this water. Ugh. Amendment 25, ratified on February 10th, 1967. In case of the removal of the president from office or of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. Whenever there is a vacancy in the office of vice president, the president shall nominate a vice president who shall take office upon confirmation by the majority of both houses of Congress. Whenever the president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that he is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, and until the transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by the Vice President or acting President. Whenever the Vice President and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other bodies as Congress may by law provide transmit to the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge of the powers and duties of his office, the Vice President shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting President. Thereafter, when the President transmits to the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that no inability exists, he shall resume the powers and duties of his office unless the Vice President and a majority of either the principal officers of the Executive Department or of such other body as Congress may by law provide transmit 4 days and to the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. Thereupon, Congress shall decide to issue assembling within 48 hours for that purpose if not in session. If the Congress, within 21 days after receipt of the letter written declaration, or if Congress is not in session within every 21 days after Congress required to assemble, determines by 2/3 of the House, both houses, that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the Vice President shall continue to discharge the same as acting President. Otherwise, the President shall resume the powers and duties of his office. Alright, so probably one last drink. Well, 2 more drinks left, really. Amendment 26, ratified July 1st, 1971. The rights of citizens of the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of age. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. And finally, Amendment 27, ratified May 7th, 1992. No law varying the compensation for the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall be intervened. I'm not going to read this like few last pages over here, because that's completely irrelevant to this. Well, kind of irrelevant. It's kind of, I don't know. Anyway, one last thing. And that's it.